man, oh man, that's a headline you don't want as a business owner. Talk about negative press, and then it just steamrolls on top of you. So you have to do everything that is being recommended until we know more. Do I agree with all of it? No. Am I tired of a lot of it? Absolutely. But you still can't cut corners here. You have to protect everyone. The mask, the social distancing, the barriers, they all need to be in play and all need to be things to be talked about. Distracted employees, Eric. We talk about it when we don't have the world blown up around us with riots and COVID. Man, just imagine what some of your employees are thinking about right now. So we'll talk in a minute. How do you engage a distracted employee? I want you to really, really think about understanding what your people are going through. And I'm normally not this nice of a guy. Eric can vouch for that. So I really want you to step back and talk to your supervisor team. We're going to talk a lot about supervisors in a minute, and make sure they're engaging distracted employees. And I'm not just talking the normal everyday on their cell phone stuff. I'm talking life-changing craziness right now. Really dig into your visitor policies. You're letting people in. What are you doing with your truck drivers? I've seen a disarray for people getting stuff delivered, and they're just continually letting truckers own the plant, like walking through with flip-flops on. That's not an okay thing on a regular day, let alone right now. So you better have a plan for visitors. What do you do if OSHA would show up? What do you do if an inspector shows up? What do you have going on? So plan and think through that. You want to make sure that you're thinking about your building. If you're in a great big building and it's been closed for a month, Legionnaire's disease, the water gets bad inside of air conditioning units that are larger and some boilers and things like that. That stuff will kill you. So do you have to flush your stuff? Do you have eye wash stations? Does that need flushed? What are you going to do with your air filters? Do they need cleaned? Do they need to be changed to a HEPA style? That's high efficiency particulate air filter, where it catches smaller particles and cleans the air a little bit better. Should you have your ducts cleaned? Those are all questions I think everyone should be thinking about. Don't have all the answers yet, but I can tell you one thing. If I was in a building, and the smaller the building in my eyes, the more circulation I want. So I'm talking about opening windows. I'm talking about making sure my air conditioner and all the filters are clean. You have to think through all this stuff. Are you going to leave your loading docks open? If you do leave your loading docks open, is that now an unprotected 4-foot edge? Could be, depends on the height of your loading docks, and most are over 4 feet. And now if OSHA would show up on a complaint on COVID, they'll be like, oh, you don't have the safety railing system, and now you're going to get a fine on top of the loading dock. So all things you should be used to, but you got to think about it all. Claims, we already see in the games, and this is nothing's different. You get claims increase in bad times, or when people are unsure about their jobs. They want to make sure they're okay. They want to get onto the workers' comp free ride and get paid to miss work, call-offs, no-shows, and more. And that all goes back to when Eric talks about talent and containing and controlling and building that talent, keeping people. And when you hire them, you don't want to have turnover. It's going to kill you. That all ties together. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What do? Do you have your exposure plan in place? OSHA wants to know what your plan is, when you're going to clean, how you're going to clean, how often you're going to clean. Listen, document, document, document. Everything you're doing, keep track of it, because the only chance you have right now to avoid that Briggs and Stratton COVID-19 related death is proof that you're doing everything that the CDC recommends and everything that OSHA recommends, and making sure you're documenting it. Because if somebody comes in and goes, hey, I got COVID-19 at work, you could have got COVID-19 getting gas or at the grocery store. You got to have a plan. So we'll go to the next slide, since you're in control of that one. Have a plan for cleaning, everybody. Follow the rules. I want to talk to you about making sure you're reading and reviewing your manufacturer's information. The label's a great place, but the best place is the SDSs, which are safety data sheets. Some of the older people, like me, have been told since day one in 1970, those are called MSDSs. That went away, oh man, 8 years ago when they updated the Global Harmonization Standard in HAZCOM. The M is gone. So make sure your employees know that too. It's not material safety data sheets, it's safety data sheets. And one of the first questions an OSHA inspector, when he visits, loves to ask is, where are your SDSs kept? And every employee in your plant better know that. So they have to have access to them. So if it's in your lunchroom, or if there's a special filing cabinet, if they're online, you need to have that in training. So just little things like that. Tell your employees, hey, this is a new cleaner. Or make sure if you bring a new cleaner in, you ask for a copy of the SDS, because it's got to be on file. So if you always use Clorox and you can't find it now and you're using something different, you better be making sure that you understand and had a little training class and documented that it's all here. So just everything can and will steamroll, and you're going to feel like you're getting buried in normal everyday stuff. So stay positive, focus on the good stuff. We're going to keep on flying. Something you might want to post, this was right off the web. Remind everybody certain chemicals can't be mixed together and it could ruin your day. Watch the news. You'll see it 10 times a year throughout the course of the year where someone at home was cleaning with ammonia and they ran out and they went and got bleach, and the husband comes home from work or the wife comes home from work and finds their significant other one dead on the floor. You can't mix chemicals without knowing what you're doing. And it can be something as simple as mixing hydrogen peroxide and vinegar can give you a really bad day and damage while you're trying to clean. So this kind of stuff is great. You can do this in a quick training class. You can do them one a day, or if somebody's got a new chemical, we call them tailgate safety talks, toolbox safety talks. I always tell everybody, come up with your own name. It's tailgate talk from the oil and gas industry, which I grew up in construction. So it's always coming out of my mouth as a tailgate talk. But 5 minutes or less, a quick little safety pep talk every day. This is something you can just print out and show it to them. Done. Kind of things you can do to keep your employees engaged.
Yeah, I know. I can remember back in the day, and I don't know where I was, but I remember mixing bleach and ammonia. That was a rough day.
Yeah, makes it hard to breathe. Right?
Yeah, that really hard to breathe. I was in a tight space. It was really rough.
Yeah, you're lucky you got out of there, man. And there goes that wonderful PI of yours.
Yeah,
getting some more trouble. Everybody's learned the hard way. Been there, done that. The PPE assessments. So I'm getting tons of questions on PPE assessment. That's personal protective equipment. And for the first time in the world, safety people are smiling from ear to ear because the average everyday person walking on the street knows what PPE is now. I used to say, make sure you wear your PPE when you're at home running your chainsaw or weed eater, and everybody go, what the heck is PPE? PPE is the things that keep you safe, your safety glasses, your face mask, or N95. So those are very, very important things. So OSHA, when you have any job, want an assessment of every job position that you have. But there's a change now because of COVID-19. So you might want to be updating and reevaluating. I'm still recommending, because CDC wants all available N95s for the healthcare side of the game. The only reason that you would need an N95, or I shouldn't say the only reason, but some of the reasons you would need an N95 at work would be for like a silica dust or something you don't want your employees breathing. There's other options out there, but evaluate, make sure you're looking at everything. If you use that kind of PPE and maybe you're having trouble getting it, now what do you use? Do you go to a half face? Do you go to a full face respirator? The one thing I really want to talk about, and I can't believe this came out at the beginning of this, when they said N95s, they were going to waive the medical clearance and fit testing stuff. Don't believe that for a second. I think it was miscommunicated, like a lot of things get miscommunicated. Listen, if you're going to put a respirator, an N95, and guys, I know it looks like a dust mask or an N100, you'll see those too. If you're going to wear one of those, you can't just put it on and go start working. You have to have medical clearance, you have to be fit tested, you have to be trained, because it's going to change the way your body reacts. So on top of COVID and all the distractions, people are already wound up, and then they throw in an N95 and they start driving their car. There's been a couple heart attacks. The first week back, people in construction that normally don't wear masks, there was over like 65 heart attacks because of the increase of use in N95s. It puts a lot of stress on your body. You have to make sure that you don't have an underlying health issue that can cause problems. So really sit down and think about your PPE. And I want to tell you, train people that you're bringing back. If they've been laid off for 2 days, if they've been furloughed, if it's been a month, if you never missed, you still want to be talking about it. So things like PPE, give them a little 5-minute talk. Talk about bloodborne pathogens or BBPs. That comes into play a little bit. You have to have a plan. Talk about washing your hands for 20 seconds. I always tell everybody I pray all day. When I wash my hands, I say the Lord's Prayer. By the end of the night, I'm good to go. I got a bunch of prayers and you wash your hands so much. So make sure that you're thinking about that 20 seconds of cleaning, you're training, you're talking, you're documenting. And the big one, if you have people wearing gloves, especially your employees that you're asking to clean facilities like a restroom or common areas or door handles, make sure you're showing them the right way to take off gloves. I did a video at the beginning of COVID on LinkedIn to show everybody. It's probably still on my web or on my LinkedIn page, on the right way to take off gloves. A lot of people have never been trained on how to take off gloves, so make sure you're reviewing that kind of stuff. Oh man, safety and HR, more than ever, safety and HR
Yes.
needs to function as one. I've been a huge fan of this. I ran into one of the best HR people I've ever worked with in my life. His name's Brian Biggins. Love him. He taught me so much in the steel mill I worked at. Absolute genius in the HR world, in my opinion. And he knew his people better than anyone on the plant floor, including their supervisors. And that is a powerful thing. So know your policies, know your people, know what's going on. What do you do when somebody calls off? How are you going to handle it if somebody calls in and say, my girlfriend has COVID-19, should I come to work? What's your plan? You making them stay home like you should? Absolutely. You don't want that chance. So have a plan for it. One of my favorite things in the world to do, Eric knows this, is network. I love the people in my phone. I have a client, he's an older gentleman, and I tell him my Rolodex is huge. Because if I tell him it's in my phone, he still doesn't understand that one. So you make phone calls, you talk to people that you know, or somebody in your same arena. If you got an HR mentor or policy or friend that is really good at policy, give them a call. See what they're doing. Give us a call. Call Eric. Talk to people about this. Don't feel like you're on an island. It's probably the worst thing you can do because you've been sitting in your house for a month or two by yourself. We don't want you to think that that's hey, make this decision. Don't make a mistake here. Have the right plan in place. Review FMLA. Things are getting crazy. My favorite one right now, employees are coming back. The games are already starting to be played. Hey, my wife's working and I have to take care of the kids. Really, they're saying I can get that $600 extra and I don't want to work because of daycare issues. So every game that can be played is being played. And I know for a fact, a few of that has come out of a union lawyer that told a couple guys to do that. And so I expect more of this as this drags through and continues on to see what happens. Be ready for the games. Be ready for the even the strains and sprains. If people are uncertain, if you're getting slow at work, it's proven for decades that when the environment and the business world starts to take a dip, people start to increase their fake injuries, slips and falls, strains and sprains. I tell everybody, investigate them all like it's going to be your biggest claim ever, because it just might be. So you want to really make sure you're collecting the documentation. So tie your HR into your safety program, communicating with everything and everybody, review all your policies, and make sure you're using your policies. All right, when I tell you to be nice, it doesn't mean you have to roll over and play dead. It just means follow your rules so they're the same and they're consistent. Treat everybody the same, and it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a critical piece of advice right there, just from the simple fact that, we look at the team with that 4 forces of disengagement. You have people that are disengaged or permitted, unconsciously permitted to disengage because nobody's talking with HR, right? And it has to be a cohesive team, especially nowadays. It should always be, but especially nowadays.
So some things to think about. You've had people off for a month, or there's a lot going on, and you see somebody climbing on a ladder and they're carrying a box that weighs 40 pounds and they're not using 3 points of contact. Get them off the ladder, give them a little pep talk, explain 3 points of contact. Right now, one of my favorite things that I'm seeing in all of these wonderful businesses that I'm getting to go into, I've never seen so many businesses so clean in all my life. All right, everybody had to get organized and clean for COVID-19, so I've been begging people to get rid of the pack rat mentality. If you don't need it, get rid of it. Clean up your work areas. Housekeeping is OSHA's favorite. It's an easy thing to be fined for or documented in deficiency. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your work areas clean and neat. Remind everybody, listen, you have people coming back, maybe you've been off for a month, and they're going to jump right into that fork truck and start loading tractor trailers and running through the shop. Maybe give them a refresher training on fork truck safety. Put them back in it, reevaluate them, make sure they're good. Don't forget about office people. Also, it's going to start to rain a little bit here and there. Watch for the puddles and pondings so people aren't slipping in your parking lot. But the big one, and it's a little bit too late, I always tell everybody, you should start talking about heat stress and heat strain and heat awareness at the very beginning of spring, because you're going to have a couple hot days before it gets hot for a month or two. You don't want anybody to have a heat illness. Well, wow, let's make you wear a mask. Now what do you got going on? Even if it's just a cloth mask, that's going to increase your body temperature. So be ready to give an extra break or have a cooling station, or go over wearing light clothing that breathes and doesn't absorb sweat and stay wet. and talk to them about hydrating and drinking more water and Gatorade and not caffeine. So all this stuff is just kind of rolling together, and it's a new angle. So everybody's saying right now they want to be safe. So then take advantage of it and show them how to be safe. Check for guards that might be missing. I had one client, I went in, I'm like, the guard's off the saw. He's like, the guard's never off the saw. What do you mean? I'm like, did it fall off while you were closed? They were closed for like a week, because of our wonderful governor in PA. So check your stuff. Make sure guards, maybe you did some repairs. Maybe your maintenance guy stayed in and actually decided to work on stuff while you were shut down, if you shut down. So double check everything. That's all I'm going to say about training. Train on everything and make sure you're doing it quick, short burst. All right, people are distracted more now than ever, and attention spans suck to begin with. So a 4-hour safety class is not, in my opinion, the way to go. 5 minutes a day, you're going to stick that stuff in people's heads. All right, doing a fork truck retraining going to take a little longer than that because you have to make them drive and go through the whole process. But you want to do short bursts, keep it fresh, talk to them about what's going on, and that's the best advice I can give you here.
Okay, emergency plan.
Oh, big one, right? So what are you going to do? One that a lot of people miss is bad weather, aka the tornado. Where do you put your people? Usually, if a lot of businesses don't have a below grade room or a basement, so sometimes loading docks are interior rooms with no windows, usually like a locker room or a bathroom or something like that, where you're away from the outside walls. So evaluate that. Every ocean inspector I've ever interacted with, it's in the top 5 questions they're going to ask your employees when they pull them in separately for their interview and say, where do you go when the building's on fire? The answer outside is not right. They want to know exactly the muster point or the marshal point, where people meet, the assembly area, whatever it's called. It should be also visible on your map. They need to know that answer. It's usually something like, out by the flagpole in the front, or on the southeast corner of the parking lot, there's a sign hammered into the ground that says fire rally point. You want to make sure you have this stuff. Fire alarms, do they work? They've been tested. What's your yearly requirements? Do you have sprinkler systems? Have they been tested? Who do you use? Don't forget about all that stuff, because a lot of people your fire extinguishers obviously need to be visually inspected every month. Also inspected yearly by your fire service provider and charged and documented and rehydrostat tested if it's up. I think it's 12 years now, 5 to 12 years. It changes all the time. But whatever it is, you want to make sure you're ready for it. Site safety is a big thing right now, right? Including what to do if you have an active shooter. You have to have a plan. You want to do an evaluation. You want to really be thinking about it, because listen, it has become a known hazard. And OSHA's favorite all-time favorite fine is the general duty clause, a workplace free from a recognized hazard. Well, an active shooter or disgruntled employee is now recognized hazard. So you can get a fine for it on top of all the other crap that may go on. And you want to have an evaluation. Do a walkthrough, do a security check. One thing that we like to tell people is what happens when you pull the fire alarm? People will get out of the building, right? So that's a pretty good plan. If you don't have anything in place, that might be what you start with. All right. And then you want to tell your people, hey, if we pull the fire alarm, we're going to start screaming, this is not a fire, because the last thing I want is to have an employee that knows where everybody's going to meet. All right. So you have to really, really dig into this one. And there's no easy answers. There's a lot of things out there. There's free videos all over the place. Do your homework, check your building for security and where you're letting people in. On top of the COVID screening and everything else you're supposed to be doing, this is something you need to think about.
Yeah, and you have a nice little process, Greg, that you're going to run us through here, right?
Yeah.
So you always say it starts with S.
Yes, sir.
All right. So safety. So run us through this process so people can understand this and get some good tidbits here.
Yeah, and this will be the short medium version, I promise, because I could talk about this stuff all day. Really, it changes the way you think and the way you interact. This is the big one. This is where I really got to understand what Eric was talking about. Taking the PI and using the PI and work with him changed the way I look at myself and the way that we communicate. So supervisors, that's it. That is the foundation of your safety program. It's also the first letter of the name of my company, SafT, spelled wrong because I went to Slippery Rock. That's the inside joke, but it's partially true. And it's also easier to put on t-shirts, so it saves me a few bucks when a few letters are missing. But safety, S, starts with the supervisor. That is your boots on the ground. That is your safety person. So the problem that I noticed right away when I first started working with Eric, and it goes back, he probably remembers this too. I had a welder. He was the supervisor in a steel mill. All the welders, there was 80 welders, and he was a great guy, best welder ever, worst supervisor ever. They had the highest accident rate. They had the highest call-offs. They had the quality issues. I mean, they had every issue you can imagine. It was a nightmare for the HR lady that was working there at the time. She was great. She's like, Greg, can you help me with Mac? He is killing me. I get so many complaints. He just doesn't know how to interact with people. I said, oh yeah, I'm working on that. We're going to PI. She's like, we're going to what? I said, Eric's going to help me out. It was the very first time I used this. Anyway, I knew what was going to happen. He can't interact with people, but the boy could weld. So why did he become a supervisor? Well, he was the best welder there. So when they went to, let's make the best welder the supervisor. And that could be a mistake, because the best welder might be a guy that can't lead people. And that's exactly what happened. His PI came up, and finally I had something in writing, because no one wanted to listen to Greg. I was the new safety guy rolling in. And I'm like, listen, this is scientifically proven. Here's why. And they looked at it and they went, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to talk to Mac. So I went and talked to him. I said, Mac, are you happy? You've been here for 35 years, man. You look like you hate your life. He goes, I can't stand being the boss, man. This is terrible. He goes, I got 10 more years left. I would just rather go back to welding and not have to deal with what I deal with, because the people above me don't know what they're doing. So he was a really hard supervisor to work with. So I went back to the general manager, said, Mac doesn't want to be supervisor anymore. He goes, what do you want me to do about it? I said, put him back to the head welder, promote this guy. His PI is perfect. He'll blow your mind. Within 3 months after the switch, they had the lowest accident rate. No one was mad. Mac was happy. The new supervisor was killing it, and life was good. It can work that easily, but that supervisor knows your people, or should. That supervisor is familiar with everything that goes on in your plant. He's familiar with your policies. He's familiar with the hazards of the job that they're doing. The one thing that everyone forgets about when you hire or move into a supervisor role is, what do they know about safety? What do they know about accident investigations? You can make a really good safety person out of a supervisor in a short amount of time. So that's why we start with the S area, supervisor, and it ties right into the PI, because you have to have the right person in the right job.
Sure, absolutely, agree with it. What's the next one? A.
That's the secret sauce, as we like to say. And there's nothing secret about it,
right?
But it's the hardest one. It's the accountability. And man, I could sum up the entire mess in the world right now with the A word. Accountability. No one is. So accountability is the willingness to accept responsibility for your actions. Just think about that statement for a second. How do you make somebody that gets hurt understand it's not part of the job? I can't tell you how many times we're doing an incident investigations. We call them reenactments. So we actually make them do a live reenactment of what happens. And I've had people tell me, Greg, cutting my finger off is part of working in a steel mill. And I laugh in their face. I'm like, no, it's not. Maybe in the 70s when this all started it was, but this is 2020, it's 2018, whatever the last few years have been. This is unacceptable to get hurt like this. There's no reason for this. Why would you do that? Well, it's the way we always did. No, I keep digging. So this is where you teach people to be accountable. I don't want to make somebody get in trouble for getting hurt. All right. 90% of every accident is a person makes a mistake. That's okay. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. Let's learn from it. Let's use the accident, hopefully a minor one, as the crystal ball so it never happens again. So when we dig into doing an investigation on a near miss, man, if you're not doing near miss investigations, you're missing the boat. So please, free advice, do near miss investigations. I'm going to give you a really brief description of a near miss. A near miss is when one of your employees says, oh shit, and they don't get hurt. I want them to come and tell you that they just said that, and we want to find out why. Maybe a chain broke and it flew through the shop and almost hit somebody. Nothing got hurt except a broken chain. Okay, so that could be a near miss, because if it would have hit somebody, we want to know why that chain broke, why it wasn't inspected, why it was being used wrong, why they're doing a side pull, whatever the story may be, you dig into that. So if you go to school for safety, which I didn't, I'm a geologist, but man, when I went to Exxon, their rule was, you get hurt, we're going to investigate until it almost hurts you to understand what happened. So when you do a great investigation and find the root cause or some root cause along with some contributing factors and fix them all, you're really building accountability. And my favorite thing right here is the trick. I won't leave an interview with an employee that's been hurt until I make that employee tell me why they got hurt and how they're going to stop it again. So I'll get people go, I have no idea what we're going to do. So my job as the safety person doing the investigation is to talk them into it without telling them their solution. So I get them in play some of the mind games, and I want them to tell me, hey, I'm going to wear my gloves because I shouldn't pick that sharp metal up without my gloves on.
Yeah.
Not, I don't know. You're never going to build accountability. So when the second somebody goes, well, yeah, I wear my gloves, that's a great idea. Or I'm going to use a hand tool, or I don't even have to touch them. That's a great idea, Joe. Give them a pat on the back, and we walk away. And I go to his boss. I'm like, hey, Joe just had a really good idea. He wants a new hand tool to grab it out of that piece of machinery so he doesn't have to touch it. How cool is that? Yeah, let's work on that together. So you start to build accountability, but you're also building communication. You're getting that person involved in the talent acquisition and keeping them happy, but you're getting them engaged. And when they're engaged, they're going to be so much better. And that's the beginning of building a safety culture. Talked about it earlier. If that culture's dipping, you're in trouble. So being involved, being accountable. And then when I say accountability, I usually go, hey, safety glasses on, or I'm going to write you up. It's not what I'm talking about. Yes, that works, but you got to build it first. Okay. And that takes time. So that's the short version of accountability.
Okay. F.
Oh man, frequency. This is a big one. Frequency of everything. Let's say it that way. So the severity, the frequency of your injuries and accidents and near misses. We all know that. And I'm pounding near misses in because it's a very passionate thing for me. Because if you do a good investigation on a near miss, you have a crystal ball and you could stop 5 small ones, 3 majors, and maybe even a fatality if you do the right investigation. The nice thing about frequency, we really dig into it. Stephanie's phenomenal at this. She will look at a 3 to 5 year period of workers' comp claims, and we can instantly, if they've been tracked right by the workers' comp carrier, let's say it that, we can usually tell which supervisor is giving you trouble because it's tied into that department, and they'll have call-off issues. They'll have turnover problems. And man, if there's any HR people on this call, you know how expensive turnover is. We also look at machine downtime, bad product, bad supplies, how it all ties together. So I really try to get involved with my point of contacts, the owners, the general managers, whoever it may be, and really dig into the troubles that they're having, because what you see when a machine isn't working right or when people aren't happy is a high frequency of injuries. So usually that group of people that are causing this trouble are also the same people that call off, have quality issues, play every game available. And it's the same group of people. It's that 10% that ruins it for everyone else that wants to rule the world and do a good job. And then it impacts everything. And the answer to the people that are troublemakers, hey, listen, this is required by law. You need it for your insurance. You need it for OSHA. Got to have it, all right? The thing that I like about this one, the F, if you control your F, it controls a lot of the other problems that you have, and it'll cut back on turnover. We went through this with one of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
They had one person that was really causing trouble, and they just wouldn't move her, and it just cost them so much money.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe they wouldn't look at the science that was in front of them when they were battling us on that one. The impact can be massive. If you're having a high frequency or severe injury, your work comp mod rate's going to go up, and it could go up 3 to 5, like 3.5 years. It could just continue to climb from one bad incident, depending on the size and how many employees, how many hours you're working. And now with everybody, oh, we're slow, man, you might be getting an audit at the end of the year. It could absolutely ruin your mod. So you want to really pay attention to your claims. You want to make sure your claims advisors and claims handlers are on board. You're having constant calls, communicating about it. I could talk all day about this one. So that's the short version of frequency.
All right, and the last one's T. This is big for creating that culture, right?
Yes,
culture
sir.
change, especially nowadays when we're talking about people being freaked out, not knowing what to expect, this and that. I mean, there's just so many variables, but talk a little bit about this piece.
Yeah, and it's a capital T. So it's the last letter in the name of the company, SafT. And man, hands-on. That's why it's on our logo. It's behind the hand. We want you to be thinking about the way you're training your employees. Is it better to have somebody ladder safety and you set up a ladder and show them what it looks like and then have them come up and demonstrate 3 points of contact? That takes 10 minutes. Guaranteed that's going to stick. So many people are hands-on, especially with a lot of the clients that we work with, and whether it's in a care facility for elder people, a hospital, manufacturing, oil and gas, construction. Most people, they see it and they go, oh, that isn't how I would have read that. Or if I'm reading and I'm just showing them the slide, I lost them. Right. But if they're involved in the class, like when I do fall protection, I'm making the guys wear their harness and they're going to do it right. And I'm going to teach them how to put it on, take it off, adjust it. So it's all hands on. Very, very important parts, just to help too, also with the culture. By having people involved, it becomes a little bit more fun. They might go, I don't like doing it this way. And then I can explain to them why, that they have to, because there's only one way to do this stuff, and it's the right way. It's like putting on your fire gear. If you're a fireman, they don it and they doff it, and there's steps that they go by. So you want to make sure when you're doing your investigations and accidents and your misses, you're looking for that root cause. And listen, there's no right answer. It can become a debate. I've had some great discussions. This is the root cause. Nope, this is it. And we've had, and we're like, you know what? These are the two things we're going to fix. Right? It doesn't mean there's only just one thing that causes an accident, but the prevention part of the training is amazing. And when you get to start training people, I have supervisors now all over the place. I love it. I get, I don't know, 10 texts a day of a picture of somebody doing something wrong. Like they'll be driving home, but dude, the guy across the street was putting his roof on. Look at this, no fall protection. That guy doesn't, my supervisor doesn't wear fall protection at work, never has, never will. But he's seen safety training, basic, hands-on. Yeah. And then he'll go, that ain't right, is it? No, it's not. Your instincts start to come out. Once you just understand it, it's okay. It's part of the job to ask questions and understand it. But give these supervisors just a little bit of knowledge. And it's amazing where that'll carry them. We have a guy that works for us, Tony. He's amazing. The kid has great instincts. And when I started having him work for us, he wasn't technically a safety guy. He is now. But man, he picked up right away. He crushes it. He sees things. His instincts are good. So you never know who you're training and what might be the next path for these guys or girls working for you. My favorite thing when you're doing a review or an accident investigation or doing a walkthrough and finding things wrong, the communication, the knowledge, the culture, the interaction can only build a better environment. It's just so much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, and when you have a confident manager that's been trained, that reinforces that, it puts everybody at ease. There's less stress, and of course, I could go on about the neurology of that. You know, when there's less stress, people are thinking, right? Absolutely. Because when they're stressed out, they're not thinking, they're not being logical. So tell us about this one, because I've seen this all over the place now. I mean, just this whole idea of lockout, tagout, and electrical safety.
So one of my favorite things to do is, walkthroughs. We call them mock OSHA inspections. We want to make sure that nothing's going to get you fined or somebody hurt or killed or a fire or whatever the safety reason may be. So there's two pictures there. The one on the left is obviously an electrical room with some breaker panels and some controls, and it's a mess. That would be a housekeeping violation stacked on to probably about 8 electrical safety violations. If you have a really savvy inspector, they can start to hammer you $7,000 an incident. So an obstructed electrical panel, because there's something sitting in front of it, 36 inches of clearance is required. Things on the floor, blocked door, extension cords laying in the walkway. The list goes on and on. Flammables stored on and about electrical equipment. So any electrical equipment's not supposed to have things stacked on them, sitting on them, little transformers that you have all through your plant. So in a quick boom, that's an actual photo from a buddy of mine that's an OSHA inspector. That picture cost that company $56,000. All right, because they've been warned about it. Then they had to go to the hearing, so not only did it, they got it reduced because we helped them out, and that's how they became a client. Right. But if they would have just hired us a month before that, that would have never happened, because that's easy stuff to fix. Right. Lockout, tagout, I really want to stress with everybody, you have your maintenance guys, your electricians, even outside vendors. This is where a lot of companies get in trouble, coming in to fix your HVAC or your heating system or a piece of equipment or whatever, painting, fixing a hole in the roof. And you don't check their workers' comp insurance, or you don't see what kind of training they have, and then they get hurt or killed on your site, or hurt or kill one of your employees. And who's that responsibility? Who's paying for that? Could be you. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to do your background. You have to ask for certificates of insurance. But lockout, tagout, I wouldn't let any of my maintenance people or anyone that's authorized to do lockout on my equipment start without reviewing that first. So many people get hurt lockout, tagout, and there's no going back from it, because it's almost always a fatality, a crush, or an amputation. It's never, oh, that was just a near miss. Lockout, tagout, we don't get too many near misses, all right, because it's usually something really bad, because people are in the point of operation. It's the whole idea of lockout, tagout. So please review lockout, tagout. The problem with that photo, the name is not on the tag. That would be it'd probably be about a $7,000 to $70,000 fine, depending how mad the inspector was by the time he got to that one. But you have to clearly identify the tag. Mm-hmm. So just one of the things I like to tell people to do, these kind of pictures, this is a 5 or 10 minute safety talk every morning. Right. Give one of these to your supervisors and have the discussion. Get your employees involved. Say, what's wrong with this? And let them tell you. See what they know. And then just talk about it. Hey, we just had a lockout, tagout awareness training session for 5 minutes. At the end of the year, that adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The big one that I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to share this. This is for your SDS and secondary containers, because a lot of people are bringing in new cleaners because you can't get Clorox, you can't get certain cleaners you've used. So you have to have your bottles labeled properly. You have to have the picture on the left, they're called pictograms. That has to be on those. It shows you the photo on the right is actually a secondary label. It has the product's name, the NFPA fire triangle, and then the pictograms are there. So what you want to be able to do is label a secondary container. So a secondary container is a small, like, spray bottle or a gallon jug or a quart size plastic jar that you're putting a chemical into from a bigger jug. So if you're dumping a gallon jug into a smaller container, that smaller container is secondary. If you take a 5-gallon bucket and dump it into a gallon jug, that's a secondary container, and so on and so forth. So I take a 55-gallon drum and dump something into a 5-gallon pail, that's a secondary container. So I can't grab a bucket or a bottle that says Gatorade on it and dump a purple acid inside of that, which has happened a couple of times in the last few years, and set it out there, and then somebody drinks it and they die because it says Gatorade. So don't use food grade containers. Make sure you're labeling the stuff up. You're not allowed to write on it with a Sharpie on the bottle with no label, which I think is silly, to be honest with you, but that's the rule. So remind everybody, give a quick SDS, tell them where they're kept, tell them what the pictograms mean, and make sure they're understanding that. And that could be a 10-minute training class right there. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things to do is go, what in the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
So the guy on the left, obviously, is that okay? And you don't need to be super safety guy to understand that standing on a bucket, all right. Again, I went to Slippery Rock, but bucket starts with a B, ladder starts with an L, not even close. Okay. So there's a guy standing on an excavator bucket, hoping that his buddy doesn't get stung by a bee or the hydraulic cylinders fell and he crashes to his death because he is not tied off. He's breaking a million rules. That would be a really bad day if an OSHA inspector took that picture. The sticker on the right, I love it. It's a label. OSHA loves signs and labels, if you don't know that. So training and talking about 3 points of contact and then having a sticker, you can buy these on just about any safety website. Great thing to slap on your fork trucks and remind people that the number one cause of injuries in fork trucks is people falling off of them because they get off of them wrong. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're training them and showing people 3 points of contact.
And then I think we got one video clip here that we're going to end with.
Yeah. This is a good one for anybody. It's an HR short little video. So I want you to watch this and pretend you can tell me what's wrong. What would the violation be? Look at the smile on his face. He's so happy. Hazing the new guy, see?
Yeah. Oh man. Oh.
And that fun hazing just turned into a really big work comp injury. So horseplay. All right, that would be one. So where I want to end is make sure that your horseplay policy and your HR manual matches a horseplay policy in your safety manual. And if you have two and they're separate, make one and reference them so they're identical in both. That would be a big fine by OSHA. Horseplay cannot be tolerated. There's other violations, but that would be the big one. And you can't. The thing that drives me nuts there is how many people are involved. You had one guy driving the fork truck. You had a new guy strapped to the bundle. And somebody videotaping it. So when you really dig into that video, you find out the guy videotaping it is a supervisor.
Oh,
that's a problem, right? So supervisor, there's your safety guy, letting it go on videotaping it, and the guy gets hurt. So that's why safety starts with your supervisor, not your safety guy.
And thanks, Greg, for providing us. And just as a reminder, there's 4 forces of disengagement, right? Job, manager, team, culture. This all fits in. And as we're going back to having a safe environment and really trying to ease people's anxieties and worries as we go back, do some of these things, put these things into place. If you have questions, definitely, there's Greg's information there. You can always get a hold of me. But are there any questions that anybody else has as we wrap this up today? I think I have just a couple questions, Greg. You talked about new chemicals being brought in to situations, and that's happening everywhere. All right. If I was a business owner at a personal care home or a manufacturing plant or a construction site, and I know you might not know the answer to this, so I'm asking you to just provide some insight. Should I be looking at some of this stuff that's available now and trying to get it, like, is another wave of not being able to get it coming, and should I be stocking up on it to keep my people safe?
I've had this discussion many times, so I think I have a good answer. I would be planning, I told a few of my clients I would plan for 6 months supply.
6 months supply.
On the cleaning side. Just to avoid a problem where you're using one cleaner this week and it's gone, and next week you have another one. So if you can find it, there's a lot of distributors out there locally. I have a couple places over in Ohio I actually went and bought surface disinfectant from, which they normally don't sell, but they have the ability to switch some of their equipment to actually produce some of their own. So they're actually bottling it and making it and trying to help, local companies, which is really cool. But I would say it's just going to avoid retraining, overload of safety data sheets. They're 16 pages long. They're sections on pages. They could be that long depending on how much information's in there, and then retraining everybody. So if you can stock up a little bit and have the ability to do it, that's what I've been telling everybody. I'd do about 6 months. And then if that's gone and you can't get it back, or keep an eye on it, tell your supplier, hey, let me know when you get low. So buy it. If you're worried about budget, what I did, my one client's like, dude, I'm tight right now. We're super slow. He's like, I'm going to buy a month worth. I'm going to talk to my provider and tell him, I want to know if you're getting low, then send me another month. So he just had a couple phone calls he made, and that's what they're doing, which is another good idea. So there's different ways to handle it, but that's what I've kind of been recommending.
Yeah. That's something that I hear a lot, what should we be doing? And we definitely have clients that we can put you in touch with that that have this stuff readily available, and we'll get it to you. I know one of our clients, he was running out sanitizer to everybody because he got it in the gallon buckets when this first started happening, or gallon bottles, whatever. And he just started running around and giving it to people, the people that needed it, but they were connected with him. But that's always a good question. As we end, anything else you want to provide? There's your contact information there. You can get a hold of Greg. If you forget it, get a hold of me and I'll put you in touch with him. But again, great advice, Greg. I know you could have went on and with that, but I like that process, SafT. And if we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap it up. Any last parting words?
No, I appreciate you having me in. I enjoyed talking to the group. Hopefully helped a little bit out, got some ideas in their head. You can check us out on LinkedIn. I usually try to post stuff. I've just been taking a break. We've been so busy. But again, thanks for having me in here, man. It was a good time.
Hold on, there's another question.
Cool.
What do you tell an employee who says they can't wear a face mask because of health problems or it's too hot at work? Oh, that's a good question.
We hear that one all the time. Suck it up, Buttercup. All right, so you better have a rule for that. You better be thinking about what you're going to do because it's coming. It's too hot. Listen, people have been wearing N95s in the construction industry and half-face respirators. Guys working in steel mill, the same thing, wearing a silver suit with a face shield with a respirator. There's other options. If you have somebody that brings in a doctor's slip, that one's tricky. So they bring in a doctor's slip. The doctor's saying basically they don't want to cover their face. What you can do is reevaluate your situation, your PPE. There is positive pressure like respirators out there where they're run on a battery and they'll suck through the filter and blow air, and it's like a hood with a face shield, so it's not restrictive. The problem is those are good luck getting one. I think it's up to 10 or 12 months wait time. So you might have to get creative. Every situation's different. You might have to find a different spot for that employee. Social distance them. If they really can't wear a face mask, put them in their own little corner. I would watch them. I would make sure that this isn't a game. The hot part, you're going to have to increase your breaks. You're going to have to provide some extra water time. We did a program when I was working at the steel mill. We called it Beat the Heat. So we provided squinchers every hour. So these guys rotated every 15 minutes through 4 jobs. All right. So one job was really hard. The other 3 weren't too bad. And in each of those jobs, 2 of them had a little air chiller that blew cold air on them. And when I say cold air, it was 95-degree air, but it was 122 ambient temperature in the work area. So it felt like an air conditioner blowing on them. We also changed their safety equipment. There's vests, there's those cooling rags, frog, I forget all the names. There's a million of them out there. You can look into things like that. There's vests that you can throw in the freezer. They'll stay cold for like 3 or 4 hours. You can put those on. But again, with that kind of stuff, I hate throwing PPE on top of PPE because you're just going to get hotter. So every situation with the face mask is different. So you got to be real careful, evaluate it, and make sure it's not a game. I hope that got the answer.
Are face masks required if the employee is working outside? Example, construction.
It's going to be dependent on your state, the CDC. The rules can be a little bit different in what the companies want to do. Listen, it's going to be hard to social distance on a construction site, especially if it's a great big one. Outside's a great place. My understanding is UV light gives COVID-19 a fit. Like it doesn't do well in sunlight. I don't remember the time frame for exposure. If you're social distance and spread out, I have a couple guys that drill together. They don't wear face masks. They're staying apart. If they do get together, their answer is, listen, we have been quarantined because they travel. Yeah. So they've been staying together since it started. So they stay in the same hotel room. They're like brothers almost, even though they're not. Right. So that, I'm cool with that. Yeah. And you can explain that away. Is it the best thing? No, but those guys are working pretty hard. It gets hot sometimes. Every situation is going to be different. It's going to be dependent on, what state you're in. I know certain states have different face mask requirements, so check that out. Again, check the CDC. They seem to change the rules, I don't know, every week, 2 weeks, sometimes more. Again, don't be afraid to make a decision based on everything you see. We're all going through this for the first time. No one knows everything yet. You're going to make mistakes, but don't let that shut you down. But don't make the wrong one because it's uncomfortable to wear a face mask. Wearing the face mask does not protect the person wearing it, right? It protects everyone else. So if your rule is for your company that everybody's going to wear a face mask, damn it, everybody's going to wear a face mask. Mm-hmm. And then you're protected. If one person doesn't, that's the person that's going to get everybody else sick with a face mask on. They don't protect you. It's you protecting everyone else. So I would preach that. I would talk to everybody, say, listen, we're going to make the face mask. It's the rule. It's the state rule. It's the CDC rule. And we're just going to wear it. It is what it is. I have clients that flat out said, we don't like it, but it is what it is. And if I see you without it, sign here. This is your written. This was their safety training. This is your written. This is your verbal. And this is your last warning. If I catch you any day without a face mask on, you're fired. Any questions? Yeah. And guess what? They have no issues with face masks. Everybody's wearing them. They've all kind of gotten used to it and no big deal. And they work in one of the hottest places that we work with. Yeah. And they've had no issues. Your body will get used to it. It might take a little bit of time. So give extra breaks, give extra water. That's the easiest I can go there.
Okay. Well, that's it for today, folks. I really appreciate you stopping by, seeing us. This recording will go out in the next couple of days. We'll have it on our social media. And as always, we'll have it on our YouTube. If you have more questions, always get in touch with us. My information, most of you have it, and then Greg's information there. And we will see you around. Take care.
See you, everybody.